The morning Dominic Castellano-Pruitt found the federal subpoena taped to his front door, he was wearing a silk bathrobe and holding a $14 cup of cold brew. He stood there on the porch of his brand new $1.4 million home, the one with the Italian limestone facade and the three-car garage, and he read those papers 3 times. And then he looked up. Across the fence line, the fence that didn't actually belong to him, he saw Master Sergeant Raymond Earl Goss, retired United States Army Special Forces, sitting in an old wooden rocking chair on his porch. Raymond wasn't watching. He was just drinking his coffee. Slow, quiet, the way a man drinks coffee when he's already won. Let me tell you about Harlow Creek, Georgia. It's not a place you'd find on a tourism map. It sits about 18 miles southeast of Macon, in the red clay hill country where the roads get narrow and the pine trees lean and close. The summer of 2019, Harlow Creek was exactly what it had always been, a stretch of old land, old families, and old understandings. There were maybe 200 homes spread across 3 or 4 gravel roads. Everybody knew everybody. Kids rode bikes until dark. Dogs ran loose between properties. On Saturday mornings, the smell of wood smoke and bacon fat drifted over everything like a blessing. The community's crown jewel was Goss Road, yes, named after the same family, a quiet quarter-mile lane off County Road 7, lined on both sides with white oak and sweet gum trees so old their roots cracked the asphalt. 4 houses sat on Goss Road, 4 families, each one with roots going back 60 or 70 years. At the end of the lane, on a 3.4-acre parcel, sat a modest white house with a tin roof and a long front porch facing west so you could watch the sun go down over the tree line. The yard was simple, a rock garden along the left side, a vegetable patch out back, a Georgia state flag and an American flag on a pole near the mailbox. That was Raymond Goss's house. His family had owned that land since 1947. Nobody bothered Raymond, nobody ever needed to. Everything was peaceful on Goss Road. Right up until the moving trucks came. Master Sergeant Raymond Earl Goss had given 26 years of his life to the United States Army, and he wore that time lightly, the way a man does when he's made peace with what it cost him. He'd enlisted in 1979 at 19 years old out of Macon. After Ranger School, he was selected for the 7th Special Forces Group out of Fort Bragg, the Green Berets. Over the next 2.5 decades, Raymond did things in places he still didn't talk about: El Salvador, Panama, the Gulf, Somalia, and 2 tours in Afghanistan after 9/11. He held a combat infantryman badge, a bronze star with Valor device, and a Purple Heart he kept in a cigar box under his bed, not on any wall. He retired in 2005 at 45 years old. His wife, Lorraine, was waiting for him at the airport in Macon with his daughter, Shonda, then 12, holding a handwritten sign that said "Daddy's Home" in purple crayon. Lorraine passed in 2016, pancreatic cancer, fast and cruel. Raymond handled it the way he handled everything, in silence, with dignity, and then he planted a garden. The vegetable patch out back was Lorraine's. He kept it going. Tomatoes, butter beans, collard greens. He told his daughter it was so the land would remember her mother too. By 2019, Raymond was 59 years old. He woke every morning at 5:15 without an alarm. He drank his coffee black. He kept a routine garden in the morning, woodworking in the afternoon, an old military radio scanner on the kitchen counter for company. He had 3 hunting dogs, a coonhound named Sergeant, a bluedick named Corporal, and a little beagle mix named Private who had never once done anything a soldier was supposed to do. The neighbors loved Raymond. The kids on Goss Road called him Mr. Ray. He fixed things. He kept his land immaculate. He never raised his voice. He had one issue that nobody talked about much: PTSD, the kind that came with decades of quiet work in loud places. He didn't sleep well. Some nights the scanner helped, some nights nothing did, but Raymond had learned to manage it the same way he managed everything else, with patience, structure, and discipline. He was, by every measure, a good man living a small and honest life on land his family had bled for. And someone was about to make the worst mistake of his life by underestimating all of that. The trucks arrived on a Wednesday in early June of 2019, 2 massive moving rigs and a flatbed carrying a palletized hot tub still in its factory wrap. Then came the car. A pearl white 2020 Mercedes-Benz GLE 580, plates from Fulton County, pulling a car trailer with a fire engine red Porsche Cayenne on the back. Dominic Castellano-Pruitt was 38 years old. He'd made his money in what he called digital real estate analytics, a company out of Atlanta that aggregated data from county tax records and flipped the information to hedge funds. He'd sold the company in 2018 for $11 million and spent the next year deciding who he was going to be now that he was rich. He decided he was going to be a country gentleman. He'd purchased the parcel next to Raymond's, the 2.1-acre plot that had belonged to the Hendricks family until old Tom Hendricks went into assisted living without ever visiting in person. He'd done it through an agent, off a drone video and a floor plan. Dominic arrived with his girlfriend, a 26-year-old lifestyle content creator named Briella, who immediately began filming everything for her Instagram account, which had 84,000 followers. The house they'd built was aggressive. 4,000 square feet of Scandinavian modern design dropped into the middle of Georgia red clay, black metal roof, floor-to-ceiling windows, a concrete patio with a fire pit, and outdoor speakers the size of small appliances. Raymond watched the whole thing go up over 8 months from his porch. He didn't say a word. The first red flag came on the second day Dominic was in residence. He pulled his GLE directly into Raymond's gravel driveway, which was clearly marked with his mailbox at the end, and parked there for 2 hours because, as Dominic later explained to Briella on camera, the sight lines from the main entrance are just better from over there. The second red flag came that same evening when the outdoor speakers cranked up at 9:45 p.m. with something that shook Raymond's kitchen windows. The third red flag, the one that really mattered, came the following Monday morning when a survey crew arrived with orange spray paint and started marking lines in Raymond's yard. Raymond watched the survey crew from his porch for about 20 minutes before he walked over, coffee in hand, and introduced himself. "Morning," he said. "Raymond Goss, this is my property you're marking." The crew foreman, a young man who clearly wanted no part of whatever was happening, looked at his tablet and then at Raymond and said, quietly, "We're just doing what we were hired to do, sir." Raymond asked him who hired them. Before the foreman could answer, Dominic came out his front door in linen pants and no shirt, a protein shake in one hand and his phone in the other. "Hey, you must be the neighbor," Dominic said, not a question, not warm. Raymond nodded. "Raymond Goss." "Yeah, so heads up, we're going to be putting in a fence along this line here." Dominic pointed along a line of orange spray paint that ran roughly 4 feet into what Raymond knew with certainty was his property. "Shouldn't affect you, just giving you the courtesy of knowing." Raymond looked at the spray paint. He looked at Dominic. He said calmly, "That line is on my land." Dominic tilted his head like a man who has never once been told he was wrong and didn't plan to start believing it now. "No, my survey shows the property line runs right here. My guy pulled the county records." "Your guy pulled the wrong records," Raymond said. "My family has owned this parcel since 1947. I have the original deed, the 1974 resurvey, and the 2001 county replot. The line is 4 feet east of where your crew is standing." Dominic smiled, the kind of smile that's actually contempt wearing good dental work. "Listen, man, I'm sure this feels like a big deal to you, but my survey's been certified. If you've got an issue, talk to a lawyer." He looked Raymond up and down. "Actually, this isn't your little army base anymore. Things work differently out here." He went back inside. Raymond stood there for a moment. He finished his coffee. He walked back to his porch. He sat down in his rocking chair. And he went inside and got his notebook. "Now let me pause here and ask you something. Have you ever truly tried, to be the reasonable one, to stay calm when someone is looking right through you, right through decades of your life and your family's history, like you don't matter at all? Drop a comment and tell me your story, because I want to know what that felt like." Raymond wrote down the date, Monday, June 10, 2019. The time, 8:47 a.m. He wrote a description of the conversation. He noted the name on the side of the survey company truck, Meridian Land Services, Macon, Goss. Then he went inside, found the fireproof lockbox he kept in the hall closet, the same one that held his DD-214, Lorraine's death certificate, and his Bronze Star citation, and he took out the original 1947 deed to the Goss property. He made 3 photocopies. He called his attorney. And then, because he was a patient man, and because patience had kept him alive in places where impatience got men killed, he waited. The fence went up on July 2nd. A 6-foot black aluminum privacy fence, running exactly 4 feet and 3 inches into Raymond Goss's property along a 67-foot stretch of the shared boundary. The crew took 2 days. The posts went into the ground with a pneumatic driver, bang bang bang, on a Tuesday morning while Raymond was in his garden. He documented every post, photographs, timestamps, GPS coordinates he pulled from a mapping app on his phone that his daughter Shonda had installed for him. He had 19 photographs before the crew finished lunch. That was item 1. Item 2 came on July 14th. Raymond's coonhound, Sergeant, came home from the back pasture limping badly on his right front leg. The vet in Macon, Dr. Priya Krishnamurthy at Riverside Animal Hospital, found a deep puncture wound consistent with a heavy-gauge metal stake or spike. It had been stepped on or stepped into. Raymond walked the fence line that evening. He found 3 metal landscape stakes sharpened on one end, driven into the ground at ankle height for a dog, buried in the long grass just inside the fence line, on his property. He pulled them with a pair of pliers, bagged them in a Ziploc freezer bag, and photographed them in place first. He added item 2 to the notebook. Item 3 arrived in the form of a certified letter from the Harlow Creek HOA, an organization that had existed mostly on paper for 40 years, never once enforcing anything, informing Raymond that he was in violation of the community standards for property maintenance and visual obstruction, because his vegetable garden was visible from the road. The complaint had been filed by a new HOA board member who had been elected to the board at a special meeting Raymond had never received notice of. The new HOA board member's name was Dominic Castellano-Pruitt. Raymond noted the date, time, and HOA letter number in his notebook. Item 4 came in August. Raymond had a 2014 Ford F-250 dark blue that he kept in his gravel driveway. He came out one Wednesday morning to find a long, deliberate scratch running the full length of the driver's side hood to tailgate, consistent with a key. No witnesses he could identify. He drove to the Bibb County Sheriff's Department and filed a report. Case number 2019 CR 08841. Item 5, and the one that bothered Raymond most, was when he discovered his back property line marker, an iron pin set by the county surveyor in 2001, had been dug up and moved 18 inches. He found the disturbed earth. He found the original hole. He photographed both. He called the county land office. He called his attorney again. And he went out and bought 2 more cameras, Sony 4K units with night vision, and mounted them on the eaves of his house, covering every angle of the property line. He had been documenting since June. By September, he had 412 photographs, 11 video clips, a vet bill, a police report, 2 HOA letters, and a notebook that was now 63 pages long. Dominic Castellano-Pruitt had no idea that any of this existed. That was the mistake that would cost him everything. Here's what nobody knew at the time. Raymond Goss hadn't just been a Green Beret in the conventional sense. For the last 9 years of his career, from 1996 to 2005, he had been attached to the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, more commonly known by people who don't talk about it publicly. His role had been intelligence collection and documentation in denied areas. He had spent nearly a decade learning how to build a case from nothing, how to collect evidence, maintain chain of custody, document human behavior over time, and present it in a way that would hold up under the harshest scrutiny imaginable. He wasn't just keeping a notebook. He was building a prosecution file. It happened on a Sunday morning in October. A cold morning, gray sky, smell of rain coming in from the southwest, that particular Georgia autumn light that sits low and flat over everything. Raymond had been to early service at Greater Mount Zion Baptist, the church his family had attended since 1952. He came home around 10:15, still in his good clothes, walked around the side of his house to check his garden and stopped. Lorraine's tomato plants were gone. Not dead, not neglected. Gone. Pulled from the earth, roots and all, and piled in a heap near the fence line. A section of the fence had been extended illegally, without notice, another 8 feet to the south, and the extension ran directly through the corner of the garden Lorraine had started and Raymond had kept alive for 3 years since she died. There was a note on the fence post attached with a zip tie, a handwritten note card, the kind with a little border around it. It said, "Encroachment goes both ways, DCP." Raymond stood there. The morning was very quiet. He looked at the pile of plants, he looked at the note, he looked at the fence. And then he did something that no one watching him would have expected. He took out his phone and photographed the note, the fence extension, the disturbed soil, and the pile of plants from 12 different angles. He put the note card in a Ziploc bag. He walked inside. He sat down at his kitchen table. He called his attorney, Carl Whitfield of Whitfield and Pace in Macon. It was a Sunday. Carl answered on the second ring because Raymond had called Carl enough times since June that Carl understood these calls mattered. Raymond described what he found in a calm, even voice, as if he were delivering a situation report. When he was done, Carl said, "Raymond, I think it's time we made some calls." Raymond said, "I already have a list." If you think Raymond Goss is going to walk away from this, if you think this is the part of the story where a quiet man stays quiet, then you've never met a man who has spent 26 years learning exactly how patient you have to be before you strike. Stay with me, because what comes next took Dominic Castellano-Pruitt completely apart. Here is what Dominic Castellano-Pruitt did not know about his neighbor. He did not know that Raymond Goss had, upon retirement from the Army, earned a paralegal certification from Mercer University in Macon, and spent 4 years volunteering with the Georgia Legal Aid Society. He understood property law, specifically Georgia property law, with the kind of precision that comes from caring about it personally for a very long time. He did not know that Raymond's oldest friend from his Special Forces days, a man named Luther Price, who had gone through the Q course with Raymond in 1982, was now a special agent in charge at the FBI's field office in Atlanta. They still talked every other Sunday. He did not know that Raymond's attorney, Carl Whitfield, had filed a quiet title action in Bibb County Superior Court in August, the moment the fence first went up, establishing Raymond's chain of title going back to 1947, and formally challenging the survey Dominic had used to justify the fence. He did not know that the County Land Records Office had opened an investigation in September when Raymond reported the moved survey pin, because tampering with a county survey marker is a felony in the state of Georgia under OCGA Section 4446. He did not know about the 412 photographs, the 11 video clips, the 63-page notebook. He did not know about the metal stakes in the Ziploc bag, or the note on the fence post in another Ziploc bag, or the vet records for Sergeant's leg. But there was one more thing Dominic didn't know, the thing that mattered most. Raymond's brother-in-law, Marcus Webb, had spent 30 years as a forensic accountant for the IRS. Marcus had retired in 2017. And when Raymond, being family, being careful, being the man he was, mentioned to Marcus one evening that the new neighbor had sold a tech company for $11 million and seemed to have a lot of cash flowing through a very new business entity he'd registered in Harlow Creek shortly after moving in, Marcus had gotten a particular look on his face. The look of a man who recognizes something he's seen before. Marcus made some calls of his own. By October, a very quiet inquiry had been opened by the IRS Criminal Investigation Division into the financial activities of a Georgia LLC called Goss Road Holdings, LLC, a company Dominic had registered 3 months after moving in, named after the road he lived on, the road named after his neighbor's family. The audacity of that detail would come up later in court documents. You see, folks, sometimes the villain doesn't just overplay his hand. Sometimes he picks up the wrong hand entirely. Now let me pause here and ask you something. At what point in this story did you start to feel it, that slow, certain feeling that justice is coming, that everything is about to land exactly where it needs to land? Drop a comment and tell me which moment it was for you, because I have a feeling it's different for everyone. It was a Thursday morning in March of 2020. Cold for Georgia, 41 degrees at 7 a.m., fog sitting low over the red clay and the white oak trees on Goss Road. The kind of morning where you can hear sounds traveling far, a screen door from 2 properties over, a truck on County Road 7, a dog barking somewhere out in the pines. Raymond was up at 5:15, as always, coffee on, black in the kitchen, the scanner murmuring on the counter, weather, then silence, then the early traffic report from Macon. He dressed a flannel shirt, work pants, his old army boots that still had another few years in them. He poured a second cup and went out to the porch. The rocking chair, the cool air, the quiet. At 7:14 a.m., 3 unmarked vehicles turned onto Goss Road from County Road 7. Dark SUVs, 2 Ford Expeditions, and a black Chevy Tahoe, all with federal government plates. They moved slowly, deliberately, and stopped in front of Dominic Castellano-Pruitt's house. At 7:16, a Bibb County Sheriff's cruiser followed them in. At 7:18, a process server in a gray sedan parked behind the cruiser. At 7:22, a pickup truck from the Bibb County Land Survey office pulled in. Raymond sipped his coffee. He did not get up. The federal agents, 4 of them in dark jackets with gold badges visible on their belts, walked to the front door of the black metal-roofed house and knocked, not gently. It took 6 minutes for Dominic to answer. He came to the door in a gray silk bathrobe, half asleep, a cup of cold brew in his hand that he'd apparently started making before he heard the knock. He looked at the badges. He looked at the vehicles. He looked at the documents being extended toward him. A federal subpoena related to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division inquiry into Goss Road Holdings, LLC. Formal service of the Bibb County Superior Court's ruling in Goss v. Castellano-Pruitt. Case number 2019 CV1147. Finding in favor of Raymond Goss on all counts related to the quiet title action. Ordering the removal of all encroaching fence structures within 30 days. And awarding Raymond $94,700 in compensatory damages for property damage, trespass, injury to livestock, and costs of litigation. And then the county land survey officer handed Dominic a separate document, notification that he was the subject of a criminal referral to the Bibb County District Attorney's Office for felony tampering with a government survey marker under OCGA Section 4446. Dominic stood in the doorway of his $1.4 million house in his silk bathrobe, and he did not speak for a very long time. Then he looked across the fence line. Raymond was on his porch, drinking his coffee, not even looking. The survey officer walked the fence line with a measuring tape and orange flags marking every post that needed to come out. A neighbor 2 doors down, Miss Estelle Fontaine, who was 73 and had seen everything come and go on Goss Road for 50 years, had come out onto her own porch. She watched. She didn't say anything either. Dominic went inside and made a phone call. The conversation didn't go well for him. The fence came down on a Saturday in April. A crew Dominic had to hire at his own expense, the court order specified he bore all removal costs, arrived at 8 a.m. with a post-pounder in reverse and a flatbed. They worked for 6 hours, every post, every panel, every inch of aluminum that had been standing in Raymond Goss's yard for 9 months. Raymond stayed inside most of the day. When the crew left, Raymond walked his property line alone. He looked at the soil where the posts had been. He got down on one knee and pressed his hand flat against the Georgia clay, the same clay his grandfather had worked, the same land his mother had walked, the land Lorraine had loved. He stood up, brushed his hands clean, and went and got his trowel. Mrs. Estelle brought him a casserole that evening. His daughter Shonda drove up from Savannah that weekend. A few of the other families on Goss Road came by, not to make a fuss, just to be there. Nobody waved goodbye when the moving trucks came for Dominic. They arrived 6 weeks later, 2 rigs, a flatbed for the Porsche Cayenne and a smaller van for Briella's content creation equipment. It was a Tuesday, gray and drizzling. Dominic did not come outside while the movers worked. Briella's Instagram had gone quiet in March and stayed that way. The neighbors who saw the trucks leave from their windows didn't wave. Nobody did. Goss Road was quiet again. And that's when everything changed for the better, the way things sometimes do when the wrong thing is finally corrected. The IRS investigation into Goss Road Holdings, LLC concluded in 2021. The company had been used to run personal expenses through a business entity and mischaracterize capital gains distributions from the 2018 sale. Dominic Castellano-Pruitt reached a settlement with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division that included $1.3 million in back taxes, penalties, and interest. His attorney fees on both the civil and tax matters combined came to another $340,000. The Bibb County DA's office accepted the criminal referral on the survey tampering. Dominic ultimately pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor reduction of the original felony charge, avoiding prison, but not avoiding a criminal record or the $15,000 in fines and court costs that came with it. He and Briella separated in the summer of 2021. She deleted her Instagram account that fall. The black metal-roofed house sold in late 2021 for $1.1 million, $300,000 less than what Dominic had paid to build it. He had been living in a rental in Alpharetta. The new neighbors on Goss Road were a couple from Macon, James and Delia Okonkwo, who had 2 daughters and a golden retriever. James was a high school history teacher. Delia taught music. They introduced themselves to Raymond the first weekend they moved in with a plate of jollof rice and a handshake. Raymond invited them to sit on the porch. They talked until the sun went down. And the gardens. The tomatoes Dominic had ripped out of the ground, the ones Raymond had planted in Lorraine's memory, the ones he'd tended for 3 seasons, didn't all die. Raymond had gotten to them in time, saved the root crowns of 2 of the plants. By the summer of 2020, both were back, sprawling and green and heavy with fruit in the Georgia heat. He left a paper bag of tomatoes on the new neighbor's porch the first July they lived there. No note. He didn't need to leave one. So what do we take from Raymond Earl Goss? We take this: a quiet man is not a weak man. He never was, he never will be. Raymond didn't shout, he didn't threaten, he didn't escalate or retaliate or give Dominic Castellano-Pruitt a single reason to point at him and say the word aggressor. He documented. He was patient. He used every tool that was legally available to him, and he waited for the right moment to use them. That is not passivity, that is strategy. That is the same kind of discipline that kept men alive in places where discipline was the difference between coming home and not. You see, folks, there's a thing that people like Dominic get wrong about people like Raymond. They see the quiet and they think it's surrender. They see the calm and they think it's defeat. They look at a man with an old truck and a tin roof house and they do not ask the most important question. How did this man spend his life? What has he learned? What has he endured? What does he know that nobody else on this street knows? Never mistake patience for permission. Never mistake a modest home for a small life. And never pick a fight with a veteran who has already spent 26 years learning exactly how to win. Raymond Goss didn't just protect his land. He protected his family's story, his wife's memory, the legacy of every Goss who had worked that red Georgia clay before him. And he did it without once raising his voice. The rocking chair is still on the porch. The coffee is still black. And Goss Road is exactly what it has always been. This story is inspired by real events and public court records. Names, locations, and specific details have been changed or dramatized for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real individuals is coincidental.